Welcome to this virtual service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Waynesboro for Sunday, April 18th, 2021, the Sunday before Earth Day, which falls this week on Thursday, April 22nd. This congregation has covenanted with all Unitarian Universalist congregations to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person and reverence for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. We believe that diversity is a source of strength and are accepting of all without regard for gender or sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, religious background, economic status, or physical challenges. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you are on your life's journey, welcome. My name is Kay Yost, and I've been a member of this fellowship for around 9 years. As Earth Day approaches, the phrase comes to my mind once again that there is no planet B. People have long sought for evidence of life on other planets, but so far the only planet that we know of that harbors life is our pale blue dot. The Earth is sacred to me, and my hope is its life-sustaining environment will be preserved for future generations, including the diversity of species that we share the planet with. In beginning this Earth Day service, I will share a poem with you titled Dependence Day, written by John Daniel. It would be a quieter holiday. No fireworks or loud parades, no speeches, no salutes to any flag. A day of staying home instead of crowding away. A day we celebrate nothing gained in war, but what we're given, how the sun's warmth is democratic, touching everyone. And the rain is democratic too. How the strongest branches in the wind give themselves as they resist and give themselves. How birds could have no freedom without the planet's weight to wing against. How Earth itself could come to be only when a whirling cloud of dust pledged allegiance as a world, circling dependently around a star, and the star blossomed into fire from the ash of other stars. And once, at the dark zero of our time, a blaze of revolutionary light exploded out of nowhere, out of nothing, because nothing needed the light, as the brilliance of the light itself needs nothing. The flaming chalice is a symbol of our faith. In keeping with our UU tradition, I share these words written by Paul Schrecker before the lighting of the chalice. We light this chalice for the web of life which sustains us, for the sacred circle of life in which we have our being, for the earth, the sky above and below, and for our Mother Earth, and for the mystery.
Our words of prayer today are by George Tiger, a UU military chaplain. Sun cuts through trees, casting shadows on the trunks on a woodland floor, with a lake in the distance. O power of springtime, spirit of green grasses and warm breezes, goddess of creativity, of birth, of life renewed, you sing all about us at this time. The birds call your sacred name, buds burst forth with your vestment. The sun reaches higher into the sky, shining the light of this new day through the windows of your cathedral, this world. O power of springtime, forgive us our speediness and our racing before your eternal grace, that we do not see the miracle world we share. Open our eyes with your warmth and our hearts with your beauty. Slow our minds with awe and wonder. Dear Spirit of green grasses and warm breezes, let us find here in these moments of quiet the grace of your breath as we breathe into our bodies the spirit of spring. Let us now hold in our hearts quietly together the joys and the sorrows unspoken today of this caring community.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Our choir has sung a choral arrangement of this piece, and I look forward to when we can sing it for you again. The words are attributed to Chief Seattle. This we know, the earth does not belong to us, we belong to the earth. This we know, all things are connected, like the blood that unites one family. All things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the children of earth. This we know. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. This we know.
My blood doth rise in the roots of yon oak. Her sap doth run in my veins. Boundless my soul, like the open sky, where the stars forever have lain. Where the stars, where the stars, where the stars forever have lain. My hands hold the weavings of time without end. My sight as deep as the sea. Beating my heart sounds the measures of old, that of love's eternity. That of love, that of love, that of love's eternity. I feel the tides as they answer the moon, rushing on a far distant sand. Winging my song is the wind of my breast, and my love blows over the land. And my love, and my love, and my love blows over the land. My foot carries days of the old into new. Our dreaming shows us the way. Wondrous our faith settles deep in the earth, rising green to bring a new day. Rising green, rising green, rising green to bring a new day.
I have a poem to share with you today. It's called Earth by Mark Bellatini. This is our earth. It falls through heaven like a pearl in a glass of plum wine. There are no other earths that I know of. There are no other skies that we have mapped. This is our earth. The oneness who gave birth to it remains nameless. There was no midwife then to bring us word of the birth cry. We only rejoice that it is. This is our earth. Ice caps its head, glaciers clasp its feet. Warm wind, like the breath of a lover, breathes around its breast. Mountains thrust up to the clouds, bringing joy. Storms blow across the shores, bringing fear. Silvery fish capture sunlight and bring it down into the deep as on shore. Valleys spread with ripening fruit. Cities teem with the poor and disenfranchised in the shadow of golden towers. Children live and also die. Highways throb, monks sit in silence, mothers work, crickets chirp, teachers plan, engineers design, fathers write letters. People marry with and without the blessings of law. People cry, they laugh and brood and worry and wait. This is our earth. There are no other earths. Before its wonder and philosophers fall silent, before its mystery, poets admit their words are shadows, not light, and all the great names religious leaders have left to us, Ishtar, Shekinah, Tiramater, Suchness, Wakan, Tanka, Gaia, suddenly refuse to announce themselves. And so we too fall silent, entering the time where words end and reality begins.
I grew up in rural south central Illinois, as you've heard me say many times, and most of my life so far was spent in rural and small town settings, most of it within 100 miles of where I grew up. And I grew up situated another way in this world. I grew up in the 1960s and 70s, a time when awareness of the earth changed for so many. My parents didn't have money to subscribe to magazines in those days, but someone had given them a subscription to organic gardening. My parents never really put the ideas in that magazine into practice for a variety of reasons, partly because life kept them too busy, and partly because they had few resources to do it well. But they knew about soil being depleted. They knew that human choices impacted the possibility of life on this planet. Living then in the countryside, we did not have a trash truck go by to pick up our waste. So we burned everything that would burn. We didn't have packaging like we do today. There was much less to be burned in the consumer process. And a single household's burning could be a modest once a month affair. My mom raised a garden and canned vegetables in reusable mason jars. Our household income meant we didn't spend too much on extras. Food scraps were fed to the dog, not even leaving something to compost. So at the end of a year, we loaded up 12 months worth of trash in a very few brown paper grocery bags and put them in the trunk of the car and took them to the dump. No, not to the landfill, a dump. Alongside a gravel road a few miles from our house was the dump, where we and our neighbors took that last bit that we couldn't burn or reuse and unceremoniously threw it down a hillside. Yes, hazardous waste and all. And the rain washed over it, leaching whatever was loose or soluble down into the river below. Near our house was a state highway, a low-traffic rural highway, but it had enough traffic for the shoulders and ditches to be covered in litter of all sorts, thrown without a second thought out of passing car windows. Silent Spring had been published when I was 2 years old, but its message of chemical contamination hadn't sunk in rural communities like mine yet. With no industry visibly fouling our rivers, we still fished its waters for catfish and mudcarp, pesticide leach from the field be damned. Many of our towns got their water from these same rivers, only filtering, chlorinating, and fluoridating it before sending it to kitchen taps. Ironically, it was a view from the heavens that opened the public imagination to the beauty, risk, and fragility of our earthly ecosystem. It was from Apollo 8 in 1968 that the breathtaking pictures of the Earth came back that changed our perception. Astronaut William Anders snapped a photograph of Earth, partially in shadow, rising above the moon's surface in a sky that was black and empty around it. In 1968, he provided the clearest image yet seen of our world and its smallness and fragility in space. The photograph became known as Earthrise, playing on the term sunrise, of course, which is equally an illusion based on the standpoint of the observer rather than on a reality seen from a broader perspective. Photographer Galen Rowell described Earthrise as the most influential environmental photograph ever taken. Half a century after the 1968 release of Earthrise, Anders observed, "We set out to explore the moon and instead discovered the Earth." Earthrise was followed in 1972 by Blue Marble, a view of the Earth taken from the Apollo 17 spacecraft, the last of the Apollo moon missions. Then in 1990, at Carl Sagan's prompting, Voyager 1 snapped the image of a barely visible Earth that came to be known as the pale blue dot. Voyager 1 was about 4 billion miles away from Earth and approximately 32 degrees above our elliptical plane when it captured this iconic image. In it, Earth appears caught in the center of scattered light rays, and that itself is an illusion resulting from taking the picture so close to the sun. Earth appears as a tiny point of light, a crescent, only 12 hundredths of a pixel in size. 4 years later, Sagan published his book, Pale Blue Dot, in which he wrote a famous passage that includes these words: "Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. Our posturings, Our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit, yes. Settle, not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the earth is where we make our stand. To me, this image underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. As always, Carl follows cold, hard science into a spirituality of the now, the known, and the stretch toward a universe of more. This coming Thursday is Earth Day, a day of ecological consciousness and commitment first held on April 22nd, 1970, and about 2 years after Earthrise, and 2 decades before the pale blue dot. I first learned of Earth Day in 1981 when it was observed by a festival of vendors and activists on the Booth Library Quadrangle at Eastern Illinois University. My wife and our 2 young children spent the day taking in the food and the displays. We loved the impromptu and staged musical performances. And even though we were living on one minimum wage job, we spent precious funds on a mountain dulcimer on sale that day by its maker. It was an exciting time, partly, of course, because excitement is easier to find when you are young and in good health. But I had been learning about global warming in my classes, global warming as we called it then before we expanded into climate change, which includes a broader array of changes. And here was an optimistic festival that promised the future, that we would all do what was necessary to save habitable Earth, our blue marble. We knew we could do it. We were ready to do our part. But as we now know too well, there were dollars to make and power to wield and control to be had. So the promise of turning it all around got lost in massive technological advancements and globalization on a massive scale, a greater unification and interaction of markets and industry than the earth had ever before seen. And so we lost time, and we lost sight of our pale blue dot. And climate scientists tell us still that we have to act decisively and quickly to have a chance of not being consumed by the changes we've caused and that care little for us. There are many activists and scientists we can read for details beyond knowledge I could share with you, or the possibility of covering something in the short span of a reflection in our service. That's the homework for all of us to do, together or on our own, but at different times than this. And then our test comes when we either act in ways that save our planet for human habitation and well-being, or fail to do what is necessary. It is, in many ways, a pass-fail test. We either make it or we don't. In my 20s, Earth Day was a day to celebrate with the family and buy a dulcimer we could barely pay for. Today, it is a reminder of how little time could be left for us on our home planet. The other day, I listened to Jane Fonda's interview last fall with John Lovett. She's one activist in a sea of activists, but she's particularly important in a group like ours with an average age like our average age at this fellowship. She makes a point of divulging her age rather than being coy about it, as so many were trained to do at one time. And she does this in part to beat any potential interviewer to the punch and frame it the way she wishes to frame it, but also because it is important that this is not just a concern for our children and grandchildren who will have to live with our failure if we don't achieve this massive task of reversing the worst impacts of climate change. Jane Fonda said in that interview, we've got to get out of this, and hopefully we've got to get out of it alive. Time is short. We have time, but it is short. And she has a recent book giving a very readable perspective on what we can do to be involved in the process. One book among many you could choose. Are you ready to do something more than you have so far so that we can all get out of this crisis alive? It is a challenge, but we can beat back despair. So as you go forth this week, educate yourself how you can do something more so that we all can survive together. As Unitarian Universalists, our Universalist forebears taught us that we're all in this together. While many traditional approaches to religion and spirituality made it seem that individuals can be saved one at a time, even in a sea of those who won't make it, Universalism teaches us that we are only saved together, all of us, all of humanity, all the earth. So let's save the world so that we all may live. Amen, and blessed be.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known, the wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way beautiful.